Today's story will hopefully give you the chills, because while researching this story, it definitely gave me the chills. But before we begin, if true crime stories intrigues your interest, then I would highly suggest you subscribe to my YouTube channel, as that's all I do and I upload once a week. But with all that being said, let's begin. Our story starts in a place called Kobe, located in the Hyogo Prefecture of Japan, and it was also found 300 miles west of Japan's capital, Tokyo. Hyogo is known to have big castles, such as Himeji Castle, and it was also known for its wide selections of resorts and towns. But it doesn't stop there though. If you go to the capital of Hyogo, which is Kobe, it contains one of the largest seaports. Not only that though, Hyogo is also well known for its academia, with multiple research institutions. But anyways, near the city of Kobe is where our main character of today's story is born, and his name is Issei Sagawa. Born on April 26, 1949, so just 4 years after World War II. But despite being born into a country that was deeply exhausted and very injured from that war, you would think that Issei would have quite a rough childhood, well, at least a bit anyways. But you'd be completely wrong. In fact, he would have the opposite. His childhood would be amazing, which was meaning relatively carefree. He would have 2 loving parents and also rich parents as well. His father, Akira Sagawa, was the president of Korea Water Industries, which is a company that now has over 5,000 employees and over 200 billion yen revenue. His grandfather also happened to be one of the most successful editors for Asahi Shimbun, one of Japan's largest newspaper publishers. Now yes, the life of Issei sounds amazing, but unfortunately it's not all sunshine and flowers. You see, Issei was born prematurely, so doctors thought that he wasn't going to survive at all. But he would, but in a result of that, it would cause him to develop enteritis, which is a small intestinal disease. As a result of this disease, he would become short and frail. This would be something that would hurt him while growing up. Issei was a very strange child, to be honest with you. In first grade, he would have this thing for both genders, and it's not what you're thinking of. It's something completely different. I'm not going to tell you now, but it's something that you're probably not expecting. Issei again was a strange, introverted kid that would never play sports, even though he was encouraged by both of his parents to play sports. But he would never find himself enjoying playing sports. But you would often find him in a library, sitting down reading a book, and slowly he would develop an interest in literature. Of course, when he told his parents that this was something that he was interested in, both of them agreed that yes, this could be something that could help further his life. And not long, he would find himself moving to Kawazan Gakuen University to obtain a master's degree in English literature. There, a 24-year-old Issei would meet this Western girl that was a tall and blonde woman, and she was from Germany. The two would meet as she would live in the same apartment building as Issei's grandmother, and Issei, who was attracted to her but didn't know if she would have the same feelings towards him, so pretty scared of rejection, he would just keep it bottled inside of him. But anyways, one night he would find himself visiting this woman. He would reach to her apartment door, knock on it. He got no answer, so he would knock again. Still no answer. And so he would try the doorknob and found the door was unlocked. Now thinking to himself, yeah, I'll just have a look inside to see if she's actually in the house, and if not, I'll just leave. So he walks into her apartment and begins to search for her, and he finds no sign that there was anyone in the apartment until he reaches to the bedroom. So he would walk up to the bedroom and slowly open the door so he can see a crack inside of the bedroom. And once he saw inside the bedroom, he would open the door and go to the edge of the bed, on where he would find that same German woman who was fast asleep. And that's when he would pull out a knife. And right before he could stab the woman in the head, he would move the dressing table hard enough so it made a loud noise and woke up this German woman. And that's when Issei would attack her, but now since she's awake, she would fight back. And since again Issei was a weak and frail guy, he would lose and actually run away. And you see, even though Issei did kind of know this woman, she didn't really know him like that. In fact, she really barely knew that he existed. She would see him through the hallways and would smile at him, but other than that, that was their communication. Issei was interested in this woman, but again, it's not what you think. The main reason he was interested in this woman was because of her thighs, which he thought would taste nice. So the next couple of days, Issei would plan an escape route so he could enter her apartment, kill her, and take some of her flesh. But of course, as you know, that plan would fail. Following this horrific attack, he would actually get arrested and would get charged for Issei. But Issei would never tell the police his true intentions, which I've just told you now, which kind of helped him to get out of the situation, because again, since his family had a lot of money, they would pay a settlement to the victim, and in return, Issei's charges would be dropped, which of course would get accepted, and Issei's criminal record would stay clean. This whole ordeal would anger and put a lot of stress on the family of Issei, but somehow he would only get a slap on the wrist. But moving on to April 26, 1977, which just so happened to be the birthday of Issei, he would find himself on a flight from Tokyo to France, to the main city of Paris. Why was he moving there? Because he wanted to complete a PhD in French literature at the Sorbonne University. And another reason for going to Paris was because the Japanese people thought that Paris was an amazing place. And many people of the Japanese citizens found themselves idolizing this city of Paris. And well, yes, Paris is a very amazing place. It's just not as amazing as how Japanese people describe it to be. And a lot of Japanese people that eventually go to Paris would find themselves disappointed as they began to see the true nature of Paris. But of course, nevertheless, Paris is the capital of France and is known for its amazing historical buildings and its beautiful architecture and its bustling streets, and of course the main thing, the Eiffel Tower. But it would be here in the capital of France where Issei would meet a Dutch woman by the name of Renée Hartevelt. Renée would also come to Paris to learn French literature at Sorbonne University. Renée, who was an attractive woman standing at 5'10", so almost a whole foot bigger than Issei. She had an interest in poetry, which was another reason why she came to Paris. But she was described as being a romantic at heart, with an infectious personality. She was well liked amongst her peers, and through their academic studies, Issei and Renée would slowly turn from classmates to casual friends. They would occasionally meet for coffees and help each other with lecture notes, but there was nothing more beyond that. Now, after some time of this cycle, Issei gained the trust of Renée, and the two would begin to have dinner at each other's apartments, while also revising for the exam. And well, as this friendship with this beautiful woman became bigger, so did the dark desires of Issei. And Issei knew that he needed to give in to these horrible desires and go out and kill someone. And a while, he would bring random women into his apartment with the full intentions of killing them. But once he got the chance to pull the trigger on these women, he would freeze up. Now, whether being in Tokyo or Paris, Issei knew that he needed to somehow fulfill his desires. But every time that he got the chance, he would freeze up. So he kind of got himself into a roadblock. June 11th, 1981, Renée would get invited over by Issei, and while wanting to do well in her studies, she would agree to do extra additional work with him. The main factor that she agreed to this was basically she missed some of the most important lessons of the semester, but of course luckily she had Issei to help her catch up. So around about the evening time, she would arrive at Issei's front door, where the two would quickly sit down and begin the extra work. Now the evening went quite uneventful until the dark thoughts kept looming around Issei, and now he's just staring at this innocent woman, Renée, as she's just writing away. And again, he would find her attractive and would admire the way she lived her life. But of course, as you know, his interpretation of being attracted to someone isn't the same as me and you. You see, he wanted to consume her and absorb her energy because he thought that consuming her would provide him with good health and amazing beauty. So that's why he invited her over to his apartment so he can kill her. As Renée is working at the desk, which is located in the living room, Issei would slowly creep away to retrieve something. But just before he could leave her eyesight, Renée would turn around and look at Issei and would ask him, "What are you doing?" Which he would respond by saying, "Oh, nothing, just getting dinner ready." Which Renée thought, yeah, that's okay, and she continued to work. And this whole time, Renée had no clue, nor would she even have a reason to suspect anything, because to her, Issei seemed like a normal guy. A bit weird, but normal, if that makes sense. But little did she know, a couple of minutes later, Issei would silently come behind Renée, but this time with a rifle. Renée, again with no clue, had her back against him, and she kind of began to sing her poetry to see how it sounds. And when she began, Issei would lift up his rifle, aim it at the back of Renée's head, and as he got his finger over the trigger, doubt would begin to creep in, to the point where he'd actually almost move his finger off the trigger. But unfortunately, it would be this time where he would remove all his doubts and would pull the trigger. One shot, and once Renée was dead, Issei would become very overwhelmed on what he's just done, to the point literally seconds after killing Renée, he would faint. Once after some time, he would finally regain consciousness. He would get up and would look around at the mess that he's just created, but either way, he would still go through his plan, which was to consume Renée. Once he was filled up, he would cut the rest of her body and put everything into his fridge. And now it was time for him to make up his cover plan. Now Issei would find himself with the dead body in his apartment, which by the way was in the middle of a busy city, so moving the body would prove quite difficult for Issei. Around 2 days of trying to figure out on how to get rid of this body, Issei would begin to realize that the smell from the corpse was becoming very overwhelming. That was mainly thanks to the hot weather that Paris was receiving, so kind of in a panic and knowing that he's running out of time, we go out and buy 2 large travel bags, and just after killing Rennie 2 days prior, he would dump his body inside of these bags before hailing for a taxi. The taxi would arrive around about 8 PM. Issei, who again was frail and weak, would find himself struggling to lift the bags up onto the boot of the car, which then the driver saw that he was struggling and he would come back around and help him. But even he too, who was a normal man, would struggle to lift these bags up, to the point where he would kind of jokingly tell Issei that, hey, do you have a body in here or something? Why is it so heavy? Issei would awkwardly laugh and would just say that, oh, it's just a lot of clothing, before heading inside of the cab. He would get the taxi to stop at this park, which was called Die Bolgana, and within this park were several lakes, which Issei often visited. The park was known to be a nice place to walk, and to relax and study as well. So being quite familiar with this place, Issei thought that this place would be a good place to get rid of his body. But to Issei's horror, when he opened the door as he was leaving the taxi, he saw that it was still broad daylight, and as he was looking around, he saw that there's still loads of people walking around, which isn't good for him at all, of course. But instead of going back to the apartment, he would accept that he would just have to wait. So with the bags unloaded, he would begin to walk into the park, where a lot of people would recall seeing him walk around. And now, as the sun is finally setting, the reality of his plan begins to set in for Issei, but he would get distracted by the beautiful sunset that was happening. So much so, he would actually leave his bag unattended, which was several feet away from him. And once he was done sightseeing, he would turn around and look at his bag. And to his horror, he would see there was a man poking at his bag. The stranger, while poking the suitcase, would turn and look at Issei and would ask him, is this yours? Which surprisingly, Issei would say, no, it's not. So then the stranger would look around to see if there's anyone nearby that would claim this bag, which obviously no one did. And so once he opened the bag, a woman nearby who was also watching this would begin to scream. Issei would calmly walk away as a shocked crowd began to form these suitcases, and his opportunity to dispose of a body had miserably failed. Now, as he's walking away, the question of him getting caught would loom him, but this thought wouldn't last long, because he would find himself getting raided by the French authorities, and he would formally get charged with the murder of Rennie. Surprisingly, when Issei got caught, he would actually be relieved, because he could finally talk to someone about his feelings and his dark desires. As expected with cases that involved foreigners, a long legal process would begin. After murdering Rennie and also admitting that he did kill her, Issei would be held for 2 years to await for trial, and luckily for him, his wealthy father would throw in a lot of money for a good defense lawyer. But this trial would end as Issei being legally insane and unfit to stand trial, and the judge ordered him to be indefinitely held in a French mental institution. And due to the story becoming somewhat famous, many news outlets would publicize the crimes of Issei, and as expected, the public would become outraged, because once they heard that he was going to be staying in one of their mental institutions, they got angry because the French public didn't want their taxes to go to him. Of course, following this national outcry to deport him, the government would comply. Therefore, Issei would find himself back at Japan, and since he was unfit to stand for trial in the French law system, his murder charges were dropped. And since all of his charges were dropped, all court documentations which held information of his crime were both sealed away, therefore not legally allowed to be released to foreign authorities, which include in Japan. And unfortunately, this would really back Japan into a corner, since they had no robust case on Issei, and they had no choice to let him walk free. But he was checked into a psychiatrical hospital located in Tokyo, where he would be diagnosed with personality disorder. But on August 12th, 1986, Issei checked out of the hospital without getting any treatment at all, and ever since then he was a free man to walk wherever, whenever, with whoever he wants. And still to this day, he's a free man walking in the streets of Tokyo. So that will be it for today's video of true crime stories, intrigues or interest. Then I would highly suggest you subscribe to our YouTube channel, as that's all I do and I upload once a week. But with all that being said, I thank you for watching, and yeah, goodbye.